I'm in East Nashville with Clay. He takes me to a comic book store there. He takes me to a lot of comic book stores. It makes me happy. I'm walking through the aisles. I'm looking at all the latest for DC and Marvel, and I come across the discount area. And this bigger book pops out to me, and that is Mason Mooney, Paranormal Investigator. So I grabbed it, obviously, and just now read it. I thought I'd go ahead and cover it on here, particularly since a lot of the comic books I've been covering lately are mature themed and not very applicable to all ages of readers. This one, however, is. And it was quite fun. I read it all yesterday out loud. I read out loud quite a lot. And doing my voices for the characters. For Merlin, of course. Published in 2020. The second one has already come out, and that is Mason Mooney, Doppelganger Detective. It is written and illustrated by Sierra Miller. It has a little bit of that spooky feel to it. There's some lessons learned in here, but nothing that is like in your face, slap you with a lesson type of thing. It is a little bit more in the undertone. I've not read the second one, but I thought I enjoyed this. It was good, and if this goes well, then I can always do the second one. So this is your spoiler warning. If you have not read Mason Mooney, Paranormal Investigator, please do so, and then tune back in. Starts out with, obviously, Mason Mooney, and he is this blonde kid with the feathered hair, and he's always holding this jar with a heart in it that is constantly beating. Mason definitely wants to prove himself as a paranormal investigator. He gets this letter from Iris saying that she lives in this house, and when Mason looked it up, it's been known to be haunted and have a lot of issues there. Threats against Iris's older sister, June. So Mason shows up at Iris's house and is, I'm here to help, I'm the best type of attitude, along with his heart in a jar. And she's like, oh my God, that's amazing, thank you. I didn't know anyone was gonna come. I actually wrote out to the Paranormal Society, which this guy over here, he's supposed to be super dreamy and hot. He leads it. Well, she didn't hear anything from them, so that's when she reached out to Mason Mooney. Apparently, this guy, there's a bunch of teenagers, and they do travel around the world now. They started out with a television show. Then it got picked up. They've got merchandise. They travel around doing these paranormal investigations. Mason absolutely hates them. He doesn't think they're anything actually real or all that dreamy like everybody else does. They're a bit of a team heartthrob type of thing going on. I should have mentioned, it is narrated in a specific voice. I don't know who the narrator is, but it is quite entertaining as the narrator, and that was honestly my favorite part of this, was how the narrator was written and what they would say. Iris is super cute. She's trying to show Mason around the house. Her sister is the classic older teenage sibling who's too busy wrapped up in her phone and her own social life and her friends, and thinks her younger sister's just this dorky character who, you know, just leave me alone. Well, she is getting haunted, and it turns out to be 3 ghosts. You've got this one woman who's a flapper-esque 1920s, a guy who looks like he's from the 80s. Yeah, he kind of has that Stranger Things feel to him. And then this woman who's even older than that, so probably late 1800s looking, early 1900s, and she controls the other 2 ghosts. And it turns out there was a curse placed on the house, and the older ghost says, it was by the same witch who cursed you, Mason. And we're like, wait, what? When did Mason get a curse? We didn't know about that. I'll go back to that, don't worry. So we find out with the ghosts that the curse that was placed has to do with the oldest sibling. If they are mean to their younger sibling, they will be killed and gotten rid of, and then they become a ghost and they're tied to the house, and then they watch over anybody else that comes in. The witch, she was the younger sister to the older ghost. She also placed a curse on Mason. So Mason had tried out for the Paranormal Society, and they told him to go find a death worm, and he went out and he says he found it, and it was terrifying. They didn't believe him, and they just laughed it off and were like, no, you're not going to be part of our group. But at the same time, Mason said that he wanted to get rid of fear, and he signed this contract with the witch. She removes his heart so that he doesn't have any fear, and that is his heart that is beating in the jar, and he apparently has to carry it with him all time. With that, obviously, he loses all other feelings. So Iris is like, that's really sad, and that explains why you are the way that you are. And he doesn't realize how he does come across. That is a good lesson for everyone to keep themselves in check. We all have bad days, you know, we go through shit, everybody's got that, but sometimes we do need to be called out by others who care about us, and Iris instantly does. She becomes good friends with Mason. She's like, look, you know, you come across a certain way, and it's not a good thing, and it's going to alienate you. And I'm glad he got called out, because then he does change his ways, or at least tries to. He is trying. It's not a complete 180. They defeat the ghosts by Iris saying, take me instead. I don't want to lose my sister. I didn't mean it. And they stop. And it's great and wonderful. They decide, because you were selfless enough to want to save your sister, that we'll leave her alone. So she's a little bit nicer to her, but again, not a full 180, which again, I do appreciate, because I don't like it when characters suddenly flip a switch and they act completely differently. That's not realistic. People grow, and it tends to be a little slower. So I'd like to see more growth of all of these characters in the second one. But at the end, Iris realizes that the Paranormal Society is not what they think, you know, everybody thinks they are. They're not real. They're just a bunch of wannabes, and they like the publicity. So she becomes friends with Mason and says that if there's a contract, there should be a way to get out of it. So he pulls it out, and there is a clause in there. So I do believe that the second one will go into more of that, and I'm assuming there will be another paranormal instance that they will want to investigate as well too. So it does take place in Rimbrook, fun little place. Like I said, I rather enjoyed it. The art style is really fun. It's colorful. The characters have a lot of personality to them. I would give the art definitely a 5 out of 5 on this. The story, for what it is, it's a more of a kid's book. I think again, it's a 5 out of 5. It's a fun way. There's more paragraphs in this than I would say a regular comic book or graphic novel would have, where they're the narrators giving us more information. So it's a nice, say like an intro into more of the graphic novels or comic books for our younger audience. The language in here isn't too terribly difficult. Mason tends to use some bigger words. Overall, I would definitely sleeve this one, and I'll be looking for the second one. Let me know your thoughts if you read this one, if you're interested in reading this, and if I should cover the second one. This has been Victoria with Merlin's Vault, and I'll see you in the next one.